I'm Dr.Dwijisha Katkar, and today I have been told to talk about anxiety and how it feels and how it affects our interpersonal relationships in day-to-day life. So yeah, I'm gonna do that. But first, before I start, as a doctor, I can explain it to y'all in terms of the most complicated terms and the complicated language. But as somebody who has dealt with anxiety and who continues to deal with it, as somebody living in the COVID era and as someone who took medical, and is I've basically, like almost every other person in the past 2 years, we've all been through a lot. So I will talk about it from two perspectives: as somebody who experiences it and deals with it, and as somebody who has helped other people deal with it, and also as a doctor. So in terms of helping other people deal with it, I mean it in terms of as a friend. I have been there for people who have dealt with and continue to deal with anxiety and other mental issues that are usually intermingled with anxiety. Anxiety very rarely works alone, and it's almost always a byproduct of some other mental illness that is kind of hiding behind it. So it can be depression, it can be obsessive compulsiveness, it can be a personality disorder. There's a lot of things at play, but I'm gonna keep it simple and tell you all how it affects our interpersonal relationships first. So I have realized that, so first I will explain how anxiety feels like. एंग्जाइटी बेसिकली फील्स लाइक, हम जब बोलते हैं कि मुझे बहुत बेचैनी हो रही है या घबराहट हो रही है, sorry, excuse me for my Hindi. So एंग्जाइटी बेसिकली फील्स लाइक, हम जो बोलते हैं कि हमें बेचैनी हो रही है या घबराहट हो रही है, or sometimes when we basically try to say it but we're not able to say that, I can feel my heartbeat all over my body. That is palpitations, that is a very classical symptom of anxiety. In terms of that, you can also feel breathlessness, you can also feel just very overwhelmed at that moment. Apart from that, your mind tends to lose focus of other things, and you will kind of end up obsessing over this one thing, which feels this is something that we call clinically, we call it feeling of impending doom, which basically means that you feel like your world is going to collapse and it's going to just all your dreams and aspirations and how you are as a human being just goes to the side, and you feel like it's all going to end. The world is going to end, like that 2012 movie. Yeah, like that. So it feels like that, which is what we call feeling of impending doom, which is basically kind of in a nutshell wraps up how anxiety feels. And apart from that, we just feel this, hopelessness, this sense of not having control over our own brain, which kind of drives us overtly into more of like more of the feeling of anxiety. Basically, it just stacks up one on the other, and yes, it's horrible. And what we fail to realize is this is not something that I'm saying dismissively. What we fail to realize is that this is one of the ways that you're kind of, your brain has in the long run trained to cope up with certain things. So yeah, it is not all in your mind, and you can't just chill and take care of it. It doesn't happen that way. So please, people, stop saying that. Just stop, please. Thank you. And it is, it does feel like you might die at that moment, but you won't. And you have to realize that. You have to ground yourself at that moment, and you have to snap out of it and get yourself back. And very few people are actually know how to deal with people who are facing such issues and anxiety. And most of the times they just give really not researched, not understanding advices, and that sometimes makes the entire process worse. Which is why I always say that, if you are feeling something which is going out of bounds and something that you can't take care of, and which is, which feels out of place and normal emotionally, mentally, or physically, please do consult a doctor, a therapist, instead of, always running to your friends, because this is the first instance of how interpersonal relationships are destroyed. Your friends, your family, and your significant others aren't always going to understand what you're feeling and what you're going through, and which is why they will not know how to deal with it. And also, on top of that, every single time you go to them, that you're feeling like that, and you just run to them every single time, it gets exhausting for them also, as human beings, as people who have their own problems to deal with, who have their own worlds to exist in, who have their own mindsets and some things that they might be going through as well. So every single time your friend or your family or your significant other is not going to be available at your disposal, almost, to take care of you. And I know it's a very, very hard and very almost just horrible truth to learn, but it is something that you have to realize, which is why you have to go to the right person, to the right doctor, to the therapist, to kind of realize that these are certain things that these people who's psychiatrists and therapists, they are medically licensed to deal with such problems, such issues, which is why going to them will much more benefit you than going to your friends, and it will also protect your interpersonal relationships. I'm not saying that don't talk to your friends, don't talk to your parents, or don't talk to your significant others. You should talk to them, you should be honest with them, you should confide in them. That is how a relationship works, in terms of everything, not just like a significant other relationship, in all interpersonal relationships. This is how it works. You have to tell what you're feeling at the right time, but at the same point of time, if you keep running to them for every instance of anxiety that you feel, you can't even blame them when they get irritated. And it does happen, they do get irritated, they also feel overwhelmed with your emotions on top of theirs, and it messes things up a lot. And this is something that I'm pretty sure you all must, people who are listening, you all must have gone through this, you all must have experienced it. And you might be thinking कि डॉक्टर है, ये ऐसे ये ऐसे इतने लूज टर्म्स में क्यों समझा रही है. But I've realized that as doctors, we kind of, while explaining things to people, we tend to not realize that they, sometimes, most of the times, they don't know the terminologies, which is completely fine. And would you know what, whatever terminologies of engineering is or something else? So in terms of that, and then the person in front of you doesn't really understand, the kind of what you're trying to explain to said person. So which is why I have decided to kind of go the life experience way kind of in this talk. Apart from that, it's not just going to them every time you have anxiety. There's also the fact that nobody likes to see people close to them go through something so horrible. So even in that sense, it does, sometimes we feel, I know this for a fact that, there was a point of time when my anxiety was at an all-time high, and I used to feel that people, don't give a, they don't care. They don't care. But that's not the truth. They do care. They do realize what you're going through. It's just that every person has their own limit, and which is why every person kind of can help you only till that limit. After that, they themselves are lost in terms of how to, how to be there for you, how to console you, how to help you, which is again one of the main reasons why you should be consulting a professional instead of, running to your friends every single time, which is something that we all do. Let's face it, we all do that. So, yeah. Anxiety in itself can, eat you up from inside. There are tons of reasons why you might have anxiety. And as a human being, we seem to have way too many of them. Like it can be instigated by people, it can be instigated by social media, it can be instigated by your own emotions and thoughts and feelings and overthinking. And there can be so many trigger factors to anxiety that sometimes you don't even know how to sit and pinpoint them, unless you're consulting with a therapist and they kind of exactly explain to you how to do it. So it gets too much and it feels like it's just consuming you from the inside, and that's not a nice feeling. And it's just it feels so helpless and so hopeless that you don't have control over your own mind, that it gets to a point where you don't really understand what you can do about it, which is why I think so many so many misunderstandings and so many miscommunications occur in interpersonal relationships and anxiety, because of this very point, that after a point of time you don't realize how to convey what you're feeling and how you're feeling it, and the person in front of you doesn't realize and doesn't understand how to be there for you and how to take care of you, and that really messes things up. And I have been on both sides of the tail. I think all of us have. I'm not generalizing here, but at the same point of time, I think most of us have gone through these things. So yeah, that. Personally, something that helps me a lot when I'm feeling anxious is reading books. I read books, a lot of books. I love books. I'm a bookworm. And yeah, something that has helped me a lot recently is writing down what I feel. I am also a poet along with being a doctor. So a writer basically. So I do write down what I feel, and it does, make things seem not like they're just in my mind, I think somewhere you have to realize that, when people say stuff like, you'll get over it, it's not a big deal, it's just in your brain, or whatever, you're downplaying what the person is feeling, and that feels even worse than the anxiety itself. So I think when you're writing or singing or dancing or doing something creative in which you're pouring that part of you out, it helps you in dealing with it, and also it helps in validating your emotions by yourself, which is a very important thing that I think the youth today needs to really start doing. Like, everything is not not caring and not understanding things and just like doing things for the heck of it is not cool. You have to be there for people and understand how they feel, and most importantly be there for yourself. So all these creative outlets really help in terms of that. Music always helps, always, unless you don't like music, but I don't know how to help you. But yeah, so music really helps. And there are a lot of techniques that help. Meditation helps, something that I used to firmly not believe in, but now I do. Thanks to some of my friends who actually, pushed me into it. And just sometimes, even just breathing really deeply helps. Counting helps. Grounding yourself in the moment, in the present, understanding that you are, you are you, and you need to come back to this moment and not be in that chaos and tornado that you're feeling, grounding, there are a lot of techniques. There's the 5 4 3 2 1 technique, which I think everybody knows and is like, it's very famous, which is basically 5 things to touch and 4 things to see, 3 things to smell, 2 things to basically activating all your senses at one go. No, that was wrong. So there's this 5 4 3 2 1 technique where you basically activate your senses one by one, which is your touch, your sense of smell, your sense of hearing, your sense of taste, your eyesight. All of these things you have to activate one by one and ground yourself to the present moment to get yourself back. So that is also one of the things which works. Honestly, for me, there was a point of time when, talking to people used to work, but I kind of, after a point of time, I have realized that, talking to people, just consistently talking to people is, it's not really going to work. It's not going to do wonders for your anxiety, because you, like, for me, what was happening was that, I was just talking and not doing anything about it. I was just talking to multiple people about it, and that is also wrong. You have to, wrong in the sense, I'm not saying like wrong, but wrong in the sense that you have to get up and realize that you don't want to feel this way, and then do something about it actively, which is most of the times, if it's affecting your day-to-day life, please get professional help. So yeah, that's my take on anxiety and how it affects the people around us. So I hope you like it, and that's all.